Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and I wanted to have a talk with you about not being so picky right now based on political ideologies or manufacturer origins, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, right now, you need to be relatively selfish about your preparedness. And when I say that, what I'm saying is that you need to get what you need. You need to go ahead and just move forward and stop overly concerning yourself with this political agenda or with this country of manufacturer issue or whatever it might be, and just get the equipment and the gear that you find to be necessary so you're not without it when that time comes. We already know what's going on with the supply chain disruptions right this second. We know that this global conflict is unraveling at an atrocious pace, and we know it's going to affect our ability to source some of the stuff that we need. We've already talked about things here like ammunition and body armor and everything else, but it's going to affect just about everything, especially if we find ourselves in a war with a country like China. And this is where things get very dicey and why you should not pigeonhole yourself away from getting the equipment you need just based on certain opinions, okay? Now, real quick, I want to mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel, and thanks to them, I've been able to get out here and test out some new kit and just kind of see whether or not it's going to work for me. And I am trying out some new stuff and getting some new gear right this second, just so I can have everything maximized in the sense of efficiency before things get weird. And I want to make sure I have access to some of this stuff before maybe I don't. So a big thanks to Midway USA for helping me out with that. What am I talking about specifically? Well, let's start with country of origin, all right? People don't want to support China. I don't want to support China. But sometimes you're just going to buy things that are made in China, especially when it comes to the phone you're watching this on right now, or the TV you're using right this second, or the phone I'm even recording this with, right? These things are just made in China. We know they are. But when it comes to actual gear and equipment that we want to be able to defend ourselves with or protect ourselves with, people get very touchy about supporting China in that regard. Well, now's not the time to be overly concerned with that, because if we go to war with China, you're just not going to have access to that stuff anymore. And it's not always worse than the other stuff that's available here in the US. So right here on this SPR build, I've got Primary Arms 1-6X ACSS Nova, which is an LPVO. And it's probably the best budget LPVO on the market right now in its price point for $340 for a 1-6. And that's not even just according to me, that's even something that BrassFacts has said, and I actually trust him when it comes to LPVO. So why am I bringing this up? Well, this thing is made in China. But for $340 from a good company like Primary Arms, you get a decent scope that's got decent glass, definitely acceptable glass in the sense of clarity, but you get an illuminated reticle, a usable reticle that has a BDC. You get all of the features and everything you would want from a LPVO, but at $340, okay? Well, what's the American equivalent of that? There really isn't one, but let's talk about an American scope that's in a similar price range, which is right here. This is the Leupold Mark III HD 3:9 40 millimeter objective lens, and it's $499. So it's $160 more than this Primary Arms optic, right? Well, why isn't this on the SPR, you ask? I'll tell you why. Because it just got back from Leupold because it had to go in for a repair. It actually broke, okay? Now, Leupold was great. They fixed it, no questions asked. They sent it back very quickly, so I'll give them credit for that. But in the time that this was being repaired, I decided to try this scope out on this rifle because I had it on my 22 and I figured, hey, I'll just switch it over to this and just kind of plink around with it and have some fun with it to see if I like it or not. And in that amount of time, I realized that this is just a much better scope and it's less expensive. It's $160 less. And the only thing this scope does better is that it has better glass clarity. It has nice glass. This is Leupold HD glass, right? It looks great. But everything else is better from this Primary Arms. It's a better, more usable reticle. It's an illuminated reticle. It still has a 30 millimeter tube, just like this one does. And it has all the adjustment in the sense of windage and elevation that this one doesn't. It has just everything else I would want at that price point. But I was trying to support a United States made product by buying this scope and showing what was available in that budget tier price range, but I still got what would be considered budget tier and with less features, and it broke, right? And if you want to know what broke, the windage knob just stopped working. I mean, I didn't break it. It didn't fall on the ground and shatter or anything like that. I just was adjusting my zero one day and the windage knob just broke. It stopped working. That hasn't happened to me with this Primary Arms optic. It hasn't happened to me with almost any other scope I own, actually. So yeah, could this be a lemon? Sure, but it didn't really inspire a lot of confidence. Now, why am I bringing this up this way? I'm just going to it's just a $500 scope. It's fine. I'm sure the windage knob didn't break again. Check that later. Anyway, I'm bringing this up because if you're holding off on buying a quality optic because it's made in China, I mean, don't. I don't know what else to say. Now's not the time to be selfish with, or I don't even know what to call it. Now is the time to be selfish, I guess, when it comes to getting what you need and getting what's actually going to help you be more prepared and getting what's going to work for you in order to defend yourself and your family, and stop pigeonholing yourself by not being able to afford what everyone else says you should have, and get what you can get that's still of a certain level of quality, and be happy about the fact that you're getting more features and more capability, and I guess in some ways even more durability for less money. And this supply chain of made in China optics that are made by a good company like Primary Arms or even Vortex might be cut off here at any point in time. And then you'll be stuck with overly expensive stuff. Everything will cost more no matter what. And you won't get the features or the capabilities of these less expensive optics right now, right? And this can apply to a lot of things. And speaking of China, just so you know, Genesis Gold Group is another very large supporter of the channel. And magicpeppergold.com is a great place to go if you want to switch over some of your assets into a more stable asset like gold and silver. And they aren't associated with the CCP or China at all, which is excellent because a lot of gold companies very much so are. Trust me, Google it. You'll find out a lot of interesting things. But if you go to magicpeppergold.com, you can actually have them switch over your IRA into a gold-backed IRA. You can have some of your retirement accounts switched over to having some precious metals to back it up. There's a lot of things you can do through them, and it goes to support the channel, which means you get gold and silver, and I get lead and brass, which means I can do more of this. So just wanted to mention that because it definitely helps me out as well as hopefully you out when it comes to getting through a lot of this tumultuous stuff that's going on, right? So now that we're done talking about China, which is why I brought that all up, because I just always think it's weird how many precious metals companies are associated with China, but this is just one example of that. There's a million other examples, okay? Is a lot of the Chinese stuff you can find on eBay or Amazon, like the red dots that are $40, just crap? Yeah, 100% they are. Do not get that stuff. It's just straight crap. But there are some things that are decent. Primary Arms, Vortex, Burris, they all make good quality optics somewhere else other than the USA. Burris makes a lot of their stuff in the Philippines, right? Vortex and Primary Arms makes a lot of their stuff in China. SIG, a lot of their optics are made in China. Some of them are actually very good, right? So don't hold yourself back from getting something decent just because of being so worried about some of these political situations right now. Understand that this globalist economy is already set in motion. Your support or lack of support of anything doesn't really matter to the people who run the show anymore at all. I don't know how else to say it. And I'm more concerned right now with making sure that I have what I need to be ready than anything else, which is where you should be at too. And we can apply this to the political ideology stuff too. We know a lot of companies, especially back in like 2020, started supporting a lot of these movements that were radical and a lot of these movements that you might not have agreed with. And especially a lot of these companies support anti-2A stuff all the time, right? And we don't want to support them because they're trying to take away our right to keep and bear arms and everything else related to that. So I understand not giving those companies money, but if you can't get something anywhere else and you need it, this is the time to get it, right? If you absolutely need, I don't know, something from, let's say, Carhartt, for example, right? They had a lot of controversy because they made their employees all accept a medical procedure that they might not have been comfortable with, okay? I wasn't a fan of that. I haven't bought anything from them since, okay? But if I absolutely needed a pair of coveralls or gloves or whatever it was, and the only ones I could find in my size was from them that were of decent quality and within my price range, right? I would probably just get it at this point, because I'd rather have that stuff that I need in order to go out and work on the property or whatever I got to do, especially if gardening becomes the number one priority post SHTF or whatever. I'd rather have those things that I need to be able to get that job done well than not have them because of being stubborn about a political ideology and then basically just not have anything at some point in time and never have been able to afford the stuff that I actually needed, right? And that's a big part of the problem. A lot of the stuff that's affordable or accessible tends to either come from another country that you might not want to support or from a company that has political ideologies that we're not a big fan of, right? If you think about even conglomerates like Walmart, what do they support? Like, it's not your best friend, that's for sure, right? But if I need cheap rice and beans and I don't have a Costco in my area, then I got to go to Walmart and buy that stuff. And the craziest thing is, when you think about all this, is that you'll get so mad about, Carhartt that you won't buy the coveralls you need to actually go out and work on your property, which, like, I'm not trying to just say that's the only example. I'm just bringing that one up again just because, right? But then while you're upset about that and commenting about it on YouTube or anywhere else on the internet, you're using an Apple phone. And Apple, has all these different ideologies that they support and all these movements that they support. So what I'm trying to say is that I don't have to like this company. I don't have to like this country. I don't have to like the way things are done. None of that matters as much right this second. What matters right now is just getting what I need. What do I need and what does my family need in order to be fine if things go south really quickly here? No one's going to care that your optic is made in China if everything is burning to the ground, right? No one's going to care. Whoever might be on the other end of that optic, I don't think they care either. And whoever might be coming for you, they don't care that they're using a Chinese optic. All they care about is the fact that they can see you in it. So don't mistake this message, as many of you will, especially the ones who haven't watched this far, because I know it's like 30% in is when most people start commenting, right? Don't mistake this as like, just screw it, buy China, screw it, just buy anyone who supports any ideological movement you don't like. It doesn't matter, right? It does matter. I'm not trying to say it doesn't matter. I'm trying to say what matters more is that you have what you need and you have the ability to acquire it right now versus waiting because you can't afford a Night Force at $1,800, but you want something made in America that's actually good, and then you never buy it because you couldn't afford it when you could have just gotten this Primary Arms $340 and actually had something that actually does quite a bit. And when things go up, you'll no longer have access to that Night Force, and you'll no longer have access to this Primary Arms, and you'll just wish you would have bought something instead of using your backup iron sights for your main sighting system. And then the guy who does have a scope, well, he can easily see it from much further away and take that shot. That's all I'm trying to say, okay? Just about everything I have on right here is made in the USA. Not these pants, not this shirt, not this hat. These glasses are. This chest rig is. This lovely observational pouch is. I do what I can when I can. But don't screw yourself over because you're worried about what someone else might say when it comes to the country of origin of a certain product you might have, or because of the political ideology of some conglomerate a million miles away when you just needed a good pair of socks.